You know what's funny, sweetheart? You walked into a room full of people wearing masks, and you were the only one who took yours off. Now everybody's staring and nobody's laughing, except me. See, there's this beautiful little bonfire happening right now, and you probably don't even smell the smoke. How many whispers are crackling about you in break rooms and barber shops, parking lots, and group chats you will never ever screenshot. Someone clocked what you did. Someone replayed what you said, and it landed like a piano from a rooftop because you shattered something that everyone else was treating like bulletproof glass. You said the quiet part at full volume, or you did something nobody had penciled into their little forecast, and just like that, poof, the whole storyline went up in flames. The script everybody was reading from, obsolete, discontinued. See, when someone actually planted their feet and showed them what unfiltered looks like, what nerve looks like, what real conversation sounds like, when it hasn't been run through committee approval, you unlocked something that most people spend their entire lives deadbolting shut. That there is a wing of the building no one's toured, not the villain wing, not the damaged wing, but the real wing. The wing that holds opinions sharp enough to cut the ribbon at someone else's comfort parade. The wing that craves things that don't slide neatly into the filing cabinets society labeled for you. The wing that reads the room's performance review and knows the whole department is faking it. You simply cannot clock in to that charade anymore. It's like you've been a house with the curtains drawn. House showing the street only the tidy living room, the staged living room, the Pinterest-perfect living room, and everything else. The sprawling, complicated, thunderously alive reality of who you actually are, that's been locked behind those curtains, unseen, uncharted, unanticipated, unspoken. But here's what happens when someone finally throws every curtain open and lets the whole house stand naked in the daylight. The whole neighborhood has to recalibrate. They have to squint at you differently. They have to concede that you were always more than the curated window display they thought they knew. You woke up one morning. Maybe nothing registered different on the surface, but something inside you had detonated. You'd been clocking people around you swallowing things that tasted like lies, going along with plot lines that were slowly strangling the actual oxygen out of their days. You'd been doing it too, hitting your mark, keeping the set piece standing, being the character everyone needed on call rather than the person you actually were. But something cracked and you couldn't uncrack it. You couldn't rewind to pretending that settling was the same as choosing. That compromise was the same as backbone. That quiet suffering was the same as emotional intelligence. Something in you just detonated. And when it detonated, you could not contain it. You had to say something. You had to do something, even though saying it and doing it meant stepping off the marked path, meant gambling the approval of people who had a whole investment portfolio in you, staying exactly as you were. Think about Joan of Arc for a second, love. Most people know the highlight reel. The teenage girl from a no-name French village who caught a frequency, who heard something broadcasting to her that nobody else could tune into, who suddenly stood up in the middle of a war zone and said, "I'm going to flip this entire table. I'm going to do what everyone else is too terrified to attempt. Let's get real. Does this feel like progress to you?" The most dangerous thing in the world is being yourself. Read The Evolution of the Anomaly and stop apologizing. Grab it from the description or pinned comment of this video. Now, let's get back to the real meat of this. And here is what's absolutely unhinged about it. The whole kingdom, the entire establishment, all the suits and crowns who were heavily invested in the status quo. They couldn't mute her. They could not cancel her by just waving a hand because she was showing them something they couldn't unsee. She was showing them that the signal was real. The conviction, that conviction was possible. That a single person transmitting from absolute truth could actually reroute the entire trajectory of history. The whole country ended up dissecting her. Not because she was the loudest siren in the room, but because what she was demonstrating was so rare, so undiluted, so unlike anything they'd ever clocked before. They couldn't stop forensically analyzing it, debating it, trying to reverse engineer how someone so young, so unremarkable on paper, could suddenly become someone so undeniable. She showed them that the impossible was actually on the menu. She revealed that you didn't need a permission slip from the machine to rewire the machine. You just needed to actually believe in something fiercer than you believed in your own fear. And here is what nobody saw coming. It actually worked. It actually hit. Because people had been starving for someone to say this. They'd been quietly begging that someone with enough spine would just speak the raw truth, without gift wrapping it in apologies or bubble wrapping it with disclaimers. They'd been watching. They'd been watching other people play it vanilla, and they had been asking themselves why everyone's so spooked. What's the worst thing that could actually happen if you just decided to be uncut? If you decided that your integrity weighed more than someone's temporary tantrum, if you decided that your voice was worth deploying, even if it made people's eye twitch, you made that call. And the whole scene noticed, city, block, continent. They are buzzing about it because something shifted in the atmosphere the moment you did. You stopped being just the tidy front-facing curtain that everyone expected. You showed them the rest of the house, and suddenly the house isn't a predictable one-room display anymore. It becomes this sprawling, complicated, thunderous structure that can redirect foot traffic for miles, that can alter how the sunlight lands on the street, that commands attention not because it's trying to, but because it finally decided to stop boarding up what's actually inside. That hidden side of the house isn't actually empty. It's just been boarded up. It's been denied a showing. It's been the wing of reality that the system couldn't manage because the system couldn't access it. But when you threw those doors open, when you let people see, there is so much more to you than this carefully staged open house they had been permitted to tour. Something changed in how they appraise everything. They cannot go back to thinking of you as a studio apartment. They cannot pretend you don't have depth, conviction, edges, voltage. You showed them the whole blueprint. And now the whole conversation has shifted, darling. This is the strange bit that most people never decode. When you actually step into your own voltage, when you actually claim your own voice and stop issuing apologies for it, other people feel that. Yeah, other people feel that. It's like you flipped a breaker in the room that was wired all along, but dormant. You showed them that it was possible. You showed them that you could actually pull the trigger on the thing everyone else was too petrified to attempt. And the world didn't implode. You didn't get erased. If anything, you became more visible, more compelling, more dimensional, more necessary. The conversations about you are not happening because you did something scandalous or unhinged. They are happening because you did something real. Yeah, something real. You showed up as yourself in a world that's addicted to performance, and people cannot stop dissecting it because it's so rare that they don't have a category for it. Their standard labels don't apply to someone who's actually operating without a filter. It's like you've generated your own gravitational pull just by being fully yourself. The hidden wing of the house doesn't apologize for having rooms, doesn't petition you to acknowledge it belongs there. It just opens its doors and suddenly the entire neighborhood reorganizes. Everything that was measuring distance from the front porch now has to account for the fact that there is square footage, there is substance, there is life on that side too. And that changes everything. The property values shift. The light lands differently. The whole block has to recalibrate. You did that. You created a seismic shift in your zip code just by deciding to show up completely. Just by refusing to board up anymore. Just by letting people tour the full reality of who you are. Not just the staged rooms, but the whole house. And they cannot stop circling back, because authenticity has a gravitational pull that performance never, ever had. Think about what you've actually witnessed in your own experience. You've seen people win by being digestible, by being exactly what everyone wanted them to be, by never making anyone flinch. And you have seen them feel hollow. You've seen them catch their own reflection and not recognize the person staring back. You've seen them collect everything the system advertised and still feel like something critical, something load-bearing, was missing. And you have also seen people choose different routes, messier routes, routes with no GPS signal, routes that meant letting some people down. And those people, they hit different. They seem like they're actually living instead of just buffering, living their actual life. They seem like they have clearance to be themselves, and that clearance changes the whole operating system. You decided you wanted that. You decided that your peace outranked someone else's comfort. And when you made that decision visible through your moves, through your words, through the way you started occupying space differently, people could not help but take note. What's cooking right now in your life is bigger than just one scene or one swing. It's a tectonic event. It's you stepping into something that's been pressurizing underneath the surface for ages. You've been gearing up for this without even knowing it. Every time you bit your tongue and felt that burn behind your ribs, that was schooling you in what you actually stand for. Every time you compressed yourself to squeeze into someone else's blueprint of who you should be, that was mapping exactly what you refused to accept anymore. Every time you stayed muted when you had a whole speech loaded, that was building pressure inside you that had to blow eventually. And when it blew, it came out as something real, something seismic, something that people identified on contact because they have been desperate for it. The people around you are reacting in different frequencies because your shift threatens their screenplay. Some people are fired up because they are spotting themselves in your nerve. They are seeing what materializes when someone actually decides to back themselves. They are reviewing their own situations, their own muzzled voice, their own negotiations with mediocrity, and they are wondering if maybe they could pull this off too. They are wondering if maybe they could become the version of themselves that they have never been, that they have been too rattled to become. Other people are shook because your authenticity makes their inauthenticity glow in the dark. When you stop running the con, you expose the con for what it is. You show them that playing small wasn't mandatory. It was an option they kept selecting. And that's a tough pill because it means they have been selecting it too, and they don't want to cop to that. So they talk about you. They autopsy you. They autopsy what you said, what you did, how you could possibly have the audacity to show up that way. And in all that talking, all that noise, you're becoming more visible, more textured, more impossible to scroll past. There is this psychological phenomenon that fires when someone steps into their own voltage right in front of you. You cannot unsee it. You can't act like it doesn't exist anymore. Before you did this, everyone could maintain the cozy fiction that this was simply how the game was rigged. This was the way the machine operated. You were supposed to be small, supposed to be agreeable, supposed to rank other people's feelings above your own backbone. But you showed them otherwise. You showed them that it was possible to hold both. To be kind and to be honest, to be thoughtful and to be bold, to be genuine and to be formidable. You proved that the supposed trade-off was actually a bluff. And now they can't unsee it. The whole town's talking about it because somewhere in the basement of their psyche, that's what they have been aching to hear. That's what they have been praying someone would demonstrate was within reach. Here is what I need you to register about this moment. Gorgeous. About what's actually unfolding right now in your life and in the conversations swirling around you. This isn't a fluke. This isn't a glitch in the simulation. You didn't stumble into this. Something inside you recognized something and you answered the call. You felt that tug toward authenticity, toward truth, toward showing up as yourself. And you followed it even though you couldn't preview the outcome. That kind of faith in yourself, that kind of willingness to move forward on what feels true even when you can't map the whole route. That's rare. That's high voltage. That's what rewires things. Not big cinematic gestures necessarily, but genuine ones. Moves that come from alignment rather than fear, from conviction rather than panic, from clarity rather than static. And the attention you are collecting isn't punishment for coloring outside the lines. It's recognition. It's people registering that something shifted, that something changed, that you changed. And they are trying to decode what that means for their own lives. Because if it's possible for you, maybe it's on the table for them too. Maybe they don't have to keep swallowing what they have been swallowing. Maybe they don't have to keep performing their way through existence. Maybe there's a door they have been too spooked to open. Your visibility right now, all that chatter, all those conversations, they are actually receipts that you struck a nerve. You said something that people needed to hear. You did something that people needed to witness. You demonstrated something that people have been dying to believe was achievable. Think about what comes next. Precious. This is the stretch where most people get turned around because they expect the spotlight to dim once the opening act ends. They expect to drift back to baseline, to drift back to being background noise, to drift back to running their lines in the established production. But that's not what happens when you have actually ignited something real. The spotlight might pivot, might change color, might become more subtle, but it doesn't cut to black. What happens is that you have to decide what you're actually going to build with this. You have to decide whether this was a one-off, a flash of nerve that you file away proudly, or whether this is the opening scene of something fundamentally different. Whether this is you finally claiming your own voice and committing to broadcasting it, or whether this is you testing the frequency before you retreat back into static. And here's the thing that everyone who has genuinely stepped into their own voltage understands. Retreating back into static after you've tasted signal is actually harder than pushing forward, because you can't unfeel what you felt. You can't unknow what you know about yourself, especially that. You can't pretend anymore that you don't have something to transmit, that you don't have something to contribute, that you are not worth tuning into. The pressure that was building inside you, that's not evaporating. It might compress for a stretch, might go quiet, might seem like it dissolved, but it's still humming. And eventually, it has to release again, because you cannot hold yourself smaller than your actual dimensions forever. You cannot deny yourself indefinitely. It does not work. It does not work. You will feel it in your chest. You will feel it in your throat. You will feel it in every single interaction where you are tempted to shrink the frame. And you will know that you tried the small version, and it never, not once, delivered peace. Only authenticity delivers peace. Once you've opened the whole house, you cannot pretend to be a broom closet again. You cannot convince yourself that one visible room was ever actual safety. You've tasted what it feels like to be completely yourself, and that knowledge rewires your entire nervous system. You cannot unknow it. You cannot unsee it. And every time you tried to retreat back behind the boards, you will feel that resistance hum inside you. That's not punishment, Angel. That's your own authentic self refusing to be compressed anymore. Joan of Arc couldn't have clocked back in as a village girl after she'd experienced what it felt like to leap from total invisibility into civilization-altering visibility.